Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Onvermel Report. I am your host Onvermel, this one right here, and today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. Now that I have actually finally gone all the parts to my dear brother Lesef's biological representation, I thought I'd give you guys a little backstory on these models and are essentially self-mocs, because it's quite a complicated history with why these are the representations that we have on the channel. Mostly comes down to the fact that I built them all. So, but let's just start with, how about Lesef? We'll start with him first, because I have the least to say about him, unfortunately. So, my dear brother, Lesef, basically back when we were younger, we debated, we used to talk about, if we were Toa, what masks would we want? What weapons would we want? Or, what would be the funnest to play as, when we were younger as kids? Yeah, these guys don't pose the greatest, or really at all. And so, Lesef ended up basically deciding that his representation would be a Toa of air with a Kakama and a axe, because he actually had a toy axe when he was younger, and speed was the easiest mask to conjure up as a kid, or figure out how to, portray it in, basically live-action role-playing as a kid. So, when I built a version of him, I decided just to go for that interpretation. The cape was an addition that I did, but Lesef typically always really enjoys having, capes, jackets, cloaks on characters, so that was very convenient. This is just actually one of the construction figure Boba Fett actually had. And then the axe is actually from Gallinuva. Actually, I have one right here where you see this is what the weapon looked like complete before it was chopped up, because all of them actually have a chopped up Toa Nuva weapon. So, Lesef's self-mock has kind of changed over the years. He says, if you were to choose a different mask now, it would be telepathy, and he's actually got his own variations, but I wanted to keep more in tune with what he had at the time, and just aesthetically this works well. So, very much just a Toa of air with a speed and axe is basically what Lesef would portray himself as a Toa. If you saw, maybe I'll try hunt down a picture of his version of his self-mock. You can see the comparative difference between the two. But yeah, no. It took me a while to actually get all the green, but I like the different shades of green with dark, regular, lime, and then these brighter green. It's kind of nice. And I think he's pretty cool. They're all the same build. I also, just chose. It was convenient because these green throwbot bodies, well, they actually came in green, so that was really convenient. Now we get to a little bit more of a confusing history of self-mocs. Hanatu. So, Hanatu here, well, technically this isn't even what Ek, looks like as a, representation of a character. More accurately, one second, I just have, Ek would look something a little bit more like this. An elephant pirate space Jedi. But I just have my own version of Ek's real sig fig. Because, well, Hanatu was Ek's first sig fig. Or, sorry, not sig fig, self-mock, my apologies. It was his first self-mock, but that was not intentional. See, when we first joined BZ Power, he used a different mock known as Hanatu to portray himself on BZ Power, as his avatar, and he named himself after it, which essentially would look something more like this, because the name Hanatu essentially just meant handsome Pohatu. So the original version of Hanatu is basically just a Toa Nuva build with essentially just this style of build where you have this body and legs, except in Pohatu's colors. So he originally used this character as his personification in the Bionicle community. However, he did eventually change to referring to himself as Elephant Knight, which was the character you saw right before this, the black and white neon green, and which I started nicknaming him just EK or Ek, and which has then become kind of his official Bionicle name online. And I actually just have a version of this because there's a reason for that. Actually, the reasoning for now him being yellow, because this is a Toa Stone. Now, these are the exact same characters. They're both Toa Stones with Kakama's sword and shields. I decided to go for yellow for one thing. These parts don't come in tan or brown. And second, Hanatu's... Sorry, I guess I should actually refer to him as his, their official names. This is Acta. This is Hanatu, or Ek. This is Ek, technically. Let me explain why this is confusing. But why is yellow, was because, Ek's favorite color is yellow. And it was still a viable color for Toa Stone, which he was portrayed as before. Now, the reason why I keep getting mixed up with names is this was a character... Hanatu was a character before he was an avatar. A character in our own Bionicle universe, similar to Onvermel. And so, I basically built this guy for me, and I wanted to build a representation of him. So, I really liked it, so I decided to use these guys for YouTube purposes as representations. And so, I also wanted to make a Bionicle that was technically the color of Blacktron, because there's a space theme that is X Fair, which is Blacktron 2. This guy's more close to the color of Blacktron 1, with, not exactly, he's black-yellow with a bit of trans-red. More of an homage to Blacktron, but, using his favorite color and still technically fitting the a canonical color for a 12 stone. And eventually Hanatu did change his name to Ek on BZ Power, so Ek is, or Elephant Knight. Ek is just my nickname for him. Elephant Knight is his official term, but this is just the way I've shown him in the podcast. Because like I said, technically this is his version of Hanatu's more supposed to look like. This is more my version of him. In fact, I even have another version of Han. I'll explain why these guys exist at the same time a bit later, but just know for the moment that this has started a trend for the character of Hanatu. And then we also have, myself. Now this guy I built not for the YouTube channel, but because the character of Onvermel is my real version of Onvermel is this. This is the official Onvermel. This is the official Onvermel. This is just podcast me Onvermel, if it makes sense. I have a whole story and universe that all my MOCs and creations basically exist in, so he was built for that. He was built to be my main story Toa team, which in that team, Ek basically had his character, Hanatu, as part of the team. So when we joined BZ Power and had a blog, we were Toa brothers, so I think he kind of chose that as kind of a symmetry. He's like, oh look, we both have a Toa, we're Toa brothers, we're part of the same team. And I think that's why he chose Hanatu, but eventually he decided to go back to Elephant Knight as his go-to character. So I had this whole version of him. Now, his name was not originally Onvermel. It was originally Onu Purple, which was a mixture between Onua, Onipu, and the word purple. But I didn't like it, so I made up a new name, Onvermel, which was the first character I ever renamed in my world. So, which he also used to look a little bit different. Which I have a version of that guy. He used to look like this. Nuva build. And, simple. So I upgraded him to this, and then I renamed him Onvermel. But I kind of had a fondness for the name Onu Purple. So, I built this guy as a placeholder for that name, as well as, give me 1 second, a character to sit in the Exotoa, because this guy, technically, I believe, he can still fit in here. Just pop it open. I mean, he won't be able to fit in there completely because his feet have these fitting in there, but technically he is small enough that he can fit in there. Technically. He used to fit in a bit better, I think, at one point, but, you know, it's been a while. So, I created him as 2 reasons. One, I wanted to make a character with the name Onvermel again. And second, because... let me just get this... okay. And second is because I wanted to use this purple body in a total gravity to make him a little bit more, purple, because there's reasons I didn't use him in that body. I wanted to use his body first. I'll talk about that another day. But I wanted to make a character, a version of Onvermel using more purple, as well as to fit in the Exotoa, as well as to have the name Onvermel. However, when I started the Onvermel Report, it is just named after a blog I had, the Onvermel Report, which was portrayed by him, but the YouTube channel was portrayed by this guy. So he's now Onvermel, and this original version is now Onvermel. Now, my online persona did not used to be Onvermel on forums and such. He used to be Purple Wolf, which, essentially, if you want to get a more sense of what Purple Wolf is, hat, jacket, big gun, yeah. However, because Onvermel was a made-up name on myself that no one else ever shared, I decided to use it in a whole bunch of other stuff, so Onvermel became the default name of myself and how I present myself. So he was no longer really my self-mock, and this became my one of my many official self-mocks. So when he got renamed to Onvermel, I was like, well, I need an Onvermel. So here he is. And I decided I always wanted to do YouTube stuff with my brothers, so I wanted to make variations of them as well, you know, to have a whole group. So, get your sword in, please, and thank you. Oh gosh, that's kind of tough. So yeah, so we have the 3 Toa, you know, and I do have a plan to make variations, the same style, pardon me, of Toa for my other siblings, who hopefully at some point will have appearances on the podcast. I've already recorded 1 podcast with my eldest brother, How1, so you will see him. You may not see a representation of him because I might not have that mock built. Maybe I will, but, you know, so here we are. So technically, this character is Hanatu, but this portrays Ek. This character is technically Onvermel, but portrays Onvermel. And this character is technically Lisef, but this portrays Zakta. Needless to say, we have many different names that you can refer to us as. But, you know, it is what it is. So, that's basically a basic overview on these mocks of ours. If you want to get a little bit closer look of, you know, the body. There's not a gear function, it's just aesthetically, it's for aesthetics only. Also like the fact that I was able to use trans purple on a toe of gravity, because this version of Onvermel does not use any trans whatsoever, neither does the original. So it's nice to see that. He's the most purple toe of gravity I have. On my toe of gravity is more have a 50-50% ratio or have like majority black, because purple's kind of hard to work with. Now, just as a little side note, why do I have 2 of these guys? You may be wondering. Well, first I made him in this body, and then so I had to make the rest of his team in that same style. You can see the rest of the team over here. One day I will do a video on the characters, but for the time being, I had to build these 2 in this body. Now, I always kind of wanted to mess around with Hinatu because he was a character created by Ek, but I always wanted to put my own spin on him. So when I was building these guys, I decided to just have a little bit of fun with it, make him yellow. He's still Toadstone, you know, just have fun with it. But then I really, really liked how he looked. And then I decided to update my version on the team with this bigger build. So, ooh, oh dear, that's not supposed to happen. So I updated him to match. And yeah, but I didn't have the heart to break this version because I really did like the tan and brown version of him. Mostly just because he was really sentimental. And you know, all these brown balls and chopped up pieces that I have in there, so figured I'd keep them. But yeah, so this is one version of the character. It also works actually a bit with his backstory, but that's a whole video for another day. Hinatu, Onvermel. The Onvermel in my story and the Onvermel who I am aren't necessarily the same character, but it's the same character represent. It's really confusing. It's not straight cut. If you want a more real, this guy was created to be, if I was a Bonkel, how would I portray myself? Rather than, if I was a Toa, what would I want to be? Onvermel kind of mostly was accidental in becoming a self-mock, but because of the channel, he's become the official face of me online. So, yeah, that's just a little bit of history on myself, Zakta, and Ek on our, at least the models I used to portray us in the channel. I hope you guys thought this was interesting, and I'm retiring from the night.